Well, I'm George Turner. I'm an investigative journalist, and I have a website called ourcity.london where I write about our changing city and who's winning and who's losing out of the development of London.
Can you give us just a bit of background into how you started writing that blog, why you started writing it?
Yeah, I mean, I got interested in planning issues and stuff like that, like most people really, because I was affected by it. Right next to us here, we're just going past the former headquarters of the London Fire Authority.
We are indeed.
And there was plans to redevelop that into luxury housing, and I live just behind it. And they were going to build 2 towers on the back, and it was going to block out 80% of the daylight to my council estate. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. And I didn't think that was fair, really. I just thought that was a bit outrageous. The idea that they would be building these big towers with glass penthouses with lots of lovely daylight, and they're saying, oh, you guys don't deserve any. And so I campaigned against that with my lovely wife and many others in the blog. We all joined together. It was a really great community experience, and we won. Throughout that whole process, I basically, saw all of the tricks that the developers would play, all of the ways that the council would undermine the case of genuine objections, and I started to realise that, a lot of this story, a lot of the stuff we're told about the development of London, that, these buildings are necessary to attract investment in the city, they're the only things that are possible, the only viable solution to building a housing crisis, was just rubbish. And these are arguments that are put out there to actually just line the pockets of a very well-heeled development community. So yeah. I thought I would kind of start a blog which investigated that and brought that out into the open a little bit more, and I hope I try and do that.
So since you started the blog, what have been the key issues that you investigated?
I mean, the basic overarching thing is that, we desperately need housing in this city. People are suffering huge poverty through inadequate housing. But the last 5 years or so, maybe longer, have just been a massive wasted opportunity. So there is construction happening, but none of that construction really is meeting that domestic demand which we desperately need to meet. And that's really a failure of policy. That's really a failure of the way that government has treated the housing market, the policies it implements. And it's also a failure of the development community to actually deliver what's needed, because for them it's been far more profitable to chase the offshore pound than to actually do the hard work and provide housing for the public.
So do you blame the government or the developers?
Well, I'm very even-handed, right? I blame the government and I blame the developers. So basically, the government has structured the housing market in a way that should deliver some affordable housing, and local councils do have local plans which say that you should deliver normally around 40 to 50% affordable housing in any development.
Yeah.
They are almost always ignored by developers because they play all sorts of tricks, financial games, to get around the regulations. Part of the point of my blog is actually, as well, not just exposing what's going on, but then actually doing something about it. So when we uncover some sort of bad practice in the industry, taking that bad practice to the regulator and asking them to do something about it, and seeing whether they will, because actually asking that question of the regulator is an important thing as well, and if they don't do anything, that's it's important to show that too. London is enriched fantastically by the amount of people who come here to live here, but they also come here to live here to share in the experiences of the people who've grown up a culture and a community here. So we need to keep that balance of people's settled communities and people who come here to share in that.
What do you think the answer is? What can be done?
I mean, there's a whole host of things that can be done, right? Councils need to take seriously their obligations as planning authorities, right? And thoroughly scrutinise planning applications based on the policies they set out, right? Because that's the proper democratically accountable way of working, is the council creates policies. Those policies are scrutinised by the public, they are decided on through an open and democratic process, and then it's up to the council to decide whether or not any application meets those things. But also I think there are certain kind of policies that we need to kind of bring in, such as regulating non-resident purchases of housing, right? I think you should be able to buy a house in London if you're from anywhere in the world, as long as you then live in it.
Yeah.
Also transparency, right? A lot of these, and that's kind of something that will be coming in, I think, but a lot of these homes are bought as assets because they can be held anonymously. Because what you do is you set up your company in the British Virgin Islands and you buy the asset through that company, and then you can just have it anonymously, right? The knowledge of who owns land in this country is a really important
Absolutely,
thing.
yeah.
So that should be implemented. And also, there needs to be a much greater emphasis on the kind of development industry itself and encouraging good practice. And there's lots of firms of surveyors and architects and planners who see their job as getting around the planning rules, whereas actually their job should be to advise their client on how to stay within the rules. So when you get like a problem that a really big company or a really big firm of surveyors is engaged in a bad practice, how likely is it that the regulator, which is probably made up of people who used to work in that business or have colleagues that work in that company, are going to clamp down on it? Not much. I think we really probably need independent regulation of these really important professions to make sure that they are behaving correctly. What the government has done is to kind of continually reduce the rules around planning to say that they're making it simpler. But what they're doing is they're actually increasing conflict, because in the absence, you have the powerful development industry who wants to build luxury housing for investors. You have communities who want them to build something else, and you want planning authorities to build something else, and there's a conflict there. And you manage that conflict by having clear rules and strict guidelines about what people should and shouldn't do. When you remove the rules, you just make it into more of a fight. And the fight is, always going to be won by the development industry, because they are, or usually, because they are much more resourced and have much more potential gain from that fight. So what we need is a much clearer enforcement of rules, right? There's been this culture where regulation is bad, it imposes a cost. Actually, I think regulation can be really good, because it guides people of what to do, and then they don't waste their time fighting. Fights take ages. At the top of the council, and this happens in many other councils, they've just taken a view that we want to encourage development because that's good. All development is good, and so basically we just give a free pass to developers anything they want to do. But anything they want to do is not building housing for the public.
Just to sort of wrap up. If you could just tell people how they can get involved with your website and how they can possibly support you, and just what can they do off their own backs to kind of get involved and help.
Well, fantastic. Well, this website I've got is ourcity.london, which is very simple to get to. I also have an Instagram page, ourcity.london, and people can write to me about issues that they have. I'm very happy to talk to them about it, because actually part of this is we do need the public to properly scrutinise their local councils and local authorities about the way that their area is changing, about the way the local councils are taking decisions which will fundamentally change the makeup of their neighbourhood. And there is an opportunity here, right? Because we do have a new mayor, and he does say that housing is his number one priority concern. We do need the public to kind of keep a watchful eye on the politicians, because the lobbying part of the development industry is massive.
Well, look, can I just say it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for taking part.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for watching the Gentleman Cabbie. Click the videos to see more great interviews, and don't forget to subscribe.